Happy Thursday, fellow drinking mommies. I'm Whitney, one of the co-founders of the group Drinking Mommies, and joining us today from the sunny state of California is Nicki, also one of the co-founders of our group. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that honestly I think is something that we as parents always fear when our children go to school, and that is child predators working within the school districts themselves. This originally wasn't actually going to be our show topic for this week, but Nicki has a very personal and scary close to home story that she's going to be sharing with all of us. So to give a little bit of background before we get started on her end, a lot of people might not know this, but since 2012 to today, the reported cases of children either being sexually approached, touched, or sexually assaulted by educators or volunteers within the school system has been on a steady rise. According to the Washington Post, most students between the ages of 12 and 17, and by most I mean 94%, have access to both social media platforms like Facebook or Instagram, Snapchat, or access to online, such as phone, computer, you name it. So 94%. Of all of the children who had reported being sexually harassed or assaulted by their teachers, 35% of them said that they had regular communication with their educators through these social media platforms or via texting on their phones. There was also a study done by Stop Educator Sexual Abuse, Misconduct, and Exploitations that estimated in 2015 that roughly 7% of all children between 8th and 11th grade, that's 3.5 million children, reported having sexual encounters with their educators, coaches, or teachers' aides. And actually, as recently as 2017, 30 educators in Arizona were actually convicted on sex crimes with children that they were teaching, and 42 teachers in Pennsylvania in 2017 were also indicted on charges of sexual misconduct with their children. So these aren't onesie-twosie things. These are events that unfortunately do and can occur on a fairly regular basis nationwide. Now, granted, we have millions of educators in our system. This represents a small portion, but it does happen. So with that being said, Nicki, tell us about what happened down there in California.
Okay, so this year, was my daughter's first year of school. She started kindergarten. And that's something, just having your kid be away from you, you're handing them off to really a group of strangers to help with their education. And it's kind of scary because I'm a stay-at-home mom and my kids are always with me. So when I heard what happened, I was like tempted to just pull her out of school. Right. So basically there was a child predator. I don't know if he was technically considered a convicted, child molester or anything. And the reason being is because anything that had happened in the past, he would skip out on court dates, and he changed his phone, moved to different states. But anyway, this actually had happened a couple weeks ago. There was a guy that was a substitute teacher and a grade up from my daughter. So it was in one of the first grade classes. And I guess he was a long-term sub for one of the teachers. And I don't know exactly everything that had happened, but I guess he ended up touching one of the little girls inappropriately in the class. She ended up telling her parents that night. The next day, everyone in town was in an uproar. The school found out. They did the research right away, and they figured out who he was. And he had been accused of this multiple times throughout his past, and he kept leaving the school districts. So it was really scary. Like, immediately, of course, I asked my daughter if she had seen this guy, and I said that he was a teacher there at her school, showed her a picture, and she said no, thankfully. So she had no, contact that I'm aware of. But just something like that is so scary. And
I'm
I don't even
sorry.
know.
I would
Yeah,
be
it's,
pissed off.
oh yeah.
Like no sugarcoating, just pissed off, because you would like to think when someone is being either hired by the school district, either as a full-time employee, a contractor, such as a substitute, or even volunteers, that there would at least be a thorough background check, right?
Oh, I know.
And they say that they do, but the problem is, now, my background was military, and I think anyone who's worked around or in the government understands that systems don't necessarily overlap. So if one thing happens in a different, town or county or state, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate when that town, county, or state does their research. And it's infuriating, because we trust the schools with our most precious assets, and that's our children. And you think, how can you let this slip? Like, there has to be a better way. And unfortunately, what happened there in California happened actually again fairly recently. On April 22nd, actually, there was a teacher named Deaton Taylor in Missouri who was actually accused for hiring a hitman to kill a 10-year-old boy that he had molested 3 years prior. Now, those 3 years ago, he had been arrested, and DNA samples were taken from the then 7-year-old boy that tied him to sodomy. And the law enforcement officer who was in charge, or I should say the detective who was in charge of handling this case, had left the department. So the case got mismanaged and just kind of fluttered to the wayside. So this frickin' Mr. Taylor from Missouri went and got his teacher's certificate, right? So he went to a different school district, an elementary school, and became a teacher there. This sexual predator who had been facing 3 charges of first-degree statutory sodomy was allowed to get his teacher's certificate and go to a different school in the same state, and no one caught it.
That's terrible.
Like, that's awful. And it sucks, because with so many of these school districts, like the school my son goes to, there's no security cameras.
Yeah.
Like always, there's no security cameras in his classroom. Like with this boy, he got sodomized by the teacher. It says in this article on Fox News that he got sodomized on the school grounds by this teacher. He was led out of his classroom. Where the hell was everyone else?
Right?
And this girl at the school your daughter goes to, it happened on school grounds, right?
Yeah, like I don't know, again, I don't know like all the details to it. I just know that an issue came up, she was touched, she was uncomfortable, it was maybe inappropriate. And she let her parents know. Like, I don't know directly who the little girl was, but I will say though that there were other girls in that classroom that were my daughter's friends from cheer that I coached. So it's just because they're so little. I mean, 6-year-old, you know what I mean? Like, it was just very sickening and very upsetting to me that
Yeah.
our school district here failed our kids, because this guy, this substitute, has been subbing here for quite some time. So he has been around numerous elementary and middle schools. So just, I don't even know. That was very disturbing to me.
And all it takes is some link in the chain to fail. Either, you have, so going back to this Washington Post article, it talked about how the estimated reported cases of children who were either sexually assaulted or sexually enticed is estimated in the millions. But it's almost impossible to track down the actual statistics because if people don't put it into the system, if people don't report, if people, don't properly store the DNA samples so they can actually go towards conviction. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong that you don't know. And that's what happened there. That's what happened here in Missouri too. And it just blows my mind because it's a common theme, even with adults. You have adults who are the victims of sexual assault. And how many times have you heard, well, the freaking rape kits were put onto a shelf somewhere and left to, deteriorate so they can't even be submittable in the court of law anymore.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
And speaking of which, since we have recently moved, probably a couple days after we were officially out of our other house, we got an alert saying that there was a child predator that was released early from prison that's literally 2 streets down from us, and he got out early on good behavior. I'm sorry, but who in their right mind would even, how of course he's going to be on get out on good behavior. There's no children. Like, right. Seriously, like, this is the worst thing you could ever do in this world is hurt a child. So therefore you should either be put to death or stay in prison for the rest of your life. There should be no chance you could even get out and even possibly teach at a school.
Well,
or
that's how I feel.
Anything.
If
any children.
If someone sexually assaults a child, there is something screwed up upstairs.
Yes.
I'm sorry, there's going to be some people who are going to listen and be like, that's extreme. But I personally think as long as the evidence is there, beyond reasonable doubt, freaking put a bullet to their head. That's it.
Yep.
Done.
Yeah,
or put them in with the general population. It's always pissed me off that you get these sexual predators who aren't thrown in with the general population. You know why? Because
and they get protected.
Exactly, because most of the general population would either A, kick their ass, or B, they'll kill them themselves. Like, why the hell do they get protection? There is nothing that's ever going to change them to make them acceptable functional members of society again.
No, never. And I mean, I saw, like, when we had just gotten alert, this was, of course, had happened right around the time that we found out that there was, a substitute at my daughter's school that was a child predator. And I was already upset about that. And then right after, we move, I'm like, oh, great. So now we have someone that lives like 2 streets down. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, and what you're saying. Like, why is it okay for these sexual predators? Like, oh, they served their time. Fuck, the time that they served is a joke. Oh, yeah. People go away longer being in possession of marijuana without any violent offenses on their records than freaking these sexual predators go away.
I know, it's sickening.
But yet you don't say when they move into your neighborhood, you get a stupid alert, and that's if someone didn't fail the chain along the way, Yep. So they're actually put into the register, and where's your say? Like, I don't want this dude or this chick, because women do it too, moving into your neighborhood. It's ridiculous.
I know.
It's fucking
and, like,
ridiculous.
some of the things on social media, some people are very ignorant. And I can tell you right now, these are probably people that don't have children, I'm guessing. Right. But I saw comments on there saying, like, oh, gosh, well, I sure hope that they learn their lesson. It's like, there's no lesson that's going to be learned.
The only lesson they learn is not to get caught like that again.
Jesus Christ. Like, it blew my mind. Like, I withheld everything from commenting on there because I was just reading just to get, see if there's any more information, whatever. And I see all these stupid comments. I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? You really think that they're going to learn a lesson? There's nothing to be learned. They're fucked in the head. Like, they need to go away forever or just be put to death, because there's no fixing that.
I always like to tell people who say stupid things like that. And I try not to judge what other people think, but that is stupid if you think that it's a learned your lesson type.
Oh, I know.
you know, they'll be better. No, no, they won't. It's like, I always like to ask them, okay, if they do have children, do you want this man or woman sleeping under your roof? And I've never gotten one person who's told me yes. And that says something. It's like, oh, okay, so it's okay for you to make this high and mighty statement, making you seem like you're such an enlightened person, but not in your backyard. That's someone else's problem. But when you're put in a position, like in my scenario, have them sleep under your roof, it's like, no, I wouldn't do that. Then why the hell would you let someone else do it?
I know.
You know, this is one of those topics where I can just go on and on about. So I'm gonna bring myself back in, and we'll close this up with a couple helpful things. One of them is, if you have a child who you have suspected of being the victim of a sexual crime, there's a few things that you can look out for, right? A loss in appetite, mood swings, standoffishness around a certain environment or around certain individuals can all be warning signs and indicators. The biggest thing that you can do as a parent is engage your child in conversation and ask the tough, uncomfortable questions that we don't want to ask, but you gotta do. Of course, if you do suspect that your child is the victim of a sexual crime, and you know, regardless if it happens in the school or not, you have some resources out there to help you. Of course, you have law enforcement. Make sure that you contact them, but you also have the National Sexual Assault Hotline, which is 1-800-656-HOPE. So that's 1-800-656-4673. You also have Child Help, which is geared towards abuse as well as sexual violence victims. And that is 1-800-4-A-CHILD, 1-800-422-4453. We'll make sure that these phone numbers get posted up on the link after this video goes live. And we hope that you join us in on the conversation. And maybe if there's enough of us who start screaming about this sort of thing, it will actually get more attention in the media. So there's some sort of federal level of accountability to make it so shit like this doesn't get pushed to the wayside. See, I was going to try and go this video without cursing. I didn't do it.
Oh, me neither.
I failed. So, girly, is there anything that you want to bring up in here?
I don't know. I think a lot of it too is that for schools, at least apparently out here in our school district, I feel like, of course, I know teachers and everything, I'm sure everybody was shocked and appalled and they couldn't believe it happened. I just think their main focus is to make sure, obviously, the kids are safe, make sure they are good with the parents, and then maybe stop focusing on attendance and worrying about they're going to get paid or not. I'm going to tell you right now, I read so many comments. A lot of people felt the same way I did, is that they seemed like they were more concerned with making money. Because, you know, when your kids go in, they, you know, do that little checkbox, guess what? They get more money. So I think if schools really want to keep more kids enrolled and they don't want people to pull them out to homeschool, which I've considered so many times this school year, I'm going to tell you that right now. I just think they need to set their priorities straight on a lot of things and make sure the parents, that they know that the parents can trust them, that they feel comfortable, and they're not trying to like threaten the parents with shit. So that's like a huge one right there. Because I'm definitely not the only one that feels this way. So many people brought up the same thing. So
I agree. There's just been too many stories of, you know, aside from hindsight 2020 nonsense, there's just been too many stories of warning signs that were completely missed because people weren't paying attention, or frankly, they just didn't care. And so this isn't an attack on teachers or the school districts in general. There are some awesome teachers out there. I'm friends with teachers. This is an accountability problem as well as a reporting problem. There's something that is happening, something that's failing along the way, because with a lot of these cases, they're repeat offenders. It wasn't a one-time thing. So
Yep.
I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this show. Like I said, join in on the conversation. Let us know what you think. Feel free to share the video and give us any ideas for future shows. We would love to hear them. So thank you, everyone.